Okay, so hello everyone. And last week and 2 weeks we did talk about the Buddha's 3 training Dharma wheels. Which one is definitive? Which one is not definitive? Why we talk about this? Because the third Dharma well always talk about the Buddha nature is not just empty, but more than that, and incredible, innumerable qualities possess that qualities. But other Dharma wells barely talk about that. So that we know the third Dharma well is much more definitive. And also we talk about that if you not too much interpret, then you understand that the Dharma well is definitive. But if you interpret it too much, then becomes we are not relying on Buddha's teachings, and we rely in some ordinary teachings. So that's the problem. So we talk about those. So today we talk about a little bit more that with different aspects. Kap Gita Tonla Harian Jot Parapsha, Varva Niton Shima Tantonto, Ston Shidendor Dir Sarvokana Mes. So if we talk about more that the third Dharma well is more definitive. Why? Because the second Dharma well more definitive and the third Dharma well less definitive, we cannot prove by any Buddha's teachings, which means there is no Buddha's teachings clearly say is third Dharma well is less definitive and second Dharma well is more definitive. Never said. Okay? Varva Tantun Shima Nitunta, Gumba Nindir Myandi Chimbotan, Son Trans of Jim Dolly Server Sons. On the other hand, the second Dharma well is provisional teaching, and the third Dharma well is a definitive teaching. That kind of proof is there is a lot of Buddha's teachings in Buddha's teachings. For example, Gongpa Ngijir, Tibetan name, Nyandi Chemo, and Zhentong. These three sutras said it. What did it say? in sutras names in Sanskrit? That can read.
The Samadhi Nirmochaya, the Mahaparinirvana, and the Angulimala Sutra, as well as the Vinkavatara Sutra.
Yeah, these three sutras, Buddha said very, very clearly that the third Dharma well is much more definitive. And then Lankar Shangdur, Nyo Tantunt, Sorndo Paron Chartan Sons. Some people believe that Langa Sutra stated that the essence teaching, which means the Tathagarbha, Buddha nature, is provisional teaching. So he's saying, you saying these things is very, very wrong. In Tibetan say Rong Chertang Song. Rong Chertang Song means rabbit. Rabbit without knowing real reality, just hear some sound called char and then run everywhere. So there is a kind of story. So which means first one rabbit or hearing that one of the leaves of the tree fall into the water, and the sound, he scared and ran away. Then other animals say, why you run away? He said, oh, there is char. Char means that sound. And then the other all animals, these animals run with him, run away with him, and then other animals ask, and they tell each other, many animals, many types of animals run away. Finally, they're exhausted, so they discuss why we run away. They have no basis, only they hear sound of jar, nothing else. So Taranatha said, some people believe that Langa Sutra stated Buddha nature, saying the qualities of Buddha nature, not empty, and all of these things is not definitive teaching, a provisional teaching. That he's saying same as that's animals doing. And the reason why he said this, because he said, Martak sonso jipala, so Shangchil said, one of the that the Bodhisattva asked Buddha, is that you saying all the non-Buddhist Hindus languages you using that Buddha nature is permanent, not independent, not interdependent, and so forth. And you say also a self, supreme self. And he said, if that case isn't very similar of the Hindus say, then Buddha's answer saying, no, because this is still emptiness, because emptiness of others, other emptiness, you know. So it's still emptiness, Gyatso. So that's why he said, Taranatha saying, cannot be as our Hindus say, cannot be, because Hindus, they don't say emptiness. And then then also you cannot say, oh, if it's emptiness, then is similar, same as Ranton. Also you cannot say, because Rangtongpa understand emptiness only self-empty. And Zhentong, emptiness is a more broad view, because not all emptiness is as self-empty. They're empty of other. So therefore, he's saying, as long as emptiness, and then have to be essenceless, have to be not true, not true and essenceless and non-feminine negative. He said that is all of them is the foolish of the Rangtongpa's mind. So why he said this? Because if that case, then Devjin ni jiston ni diechite megaston ni devemton kunzopos. So if it is that case, then Devjin ni jiston ni diechites, the real thing, the suchness of the emptiness have to be non-feminine negative and absence of the matter, and have to be is a relative truth. So therefore is wrong. Cannot be that, because that is yeshi, is a primordial awareness. If it's a primordial awareness and primordial wisdom, then cannot be non-feminine negative, cannot be just absent of a matter. It cannot be a relative truth. Kachik por namshed stonyin chukden bermipan yinolo. So kachik means some of the Rangtongpas. Por namshed stonyin, when you analyze that your aggregates, then you can find only emptiness. So that is same as everything or the phenomenal. So therefore you say all phenomenal, or Dharma, or phenomenal is empty nature. So law means he, in the impression of, don't like that idea, disagree of that idea. So why? Because they need a namkin children Japtaps, Tematak, Sontan Gerwalinger, Nafshil, Rikpir, Shapis, Tonite, then you taps in your Gombayans. Why is disagree? Because then so what I have said, that is Namkin children Japtapsas. So that in commentary, you are contradict on that commentary. That kind of analytical emptiness is that only for method to no self-grasping, only for that, or for only that method, is not what is ultimate truth. Okay? Jukpa chanting taptariyan Gerwi Nibiton to Charvi Shir, Shunkur Shema Nibiton to Dot. So, Jukpa means the Chantakiltis Madhyamaka. In Chantakiltis Madhyamaka, that kind of teachings, like the third Dharma will, the Buddha nature is innumerable quality and supreme self and everything. He explains a provisional teaching, Chantakilti. But Buddha himself teaching is that kind of teachings is a definitive teaching. For that reason, the third Dharma will and all the commentaries has to be is definitive. You cannot rely on Chantakilti, disregard a Buddha's teachings. That is that understanding. Warwi glange tangron ba mang tami glange ring tang ba mang di shiriyang shimam chukta chupsi. Another reason he telling, the second Dharma wells, the sources of where they come from and why they come from. Langshi means base the stories. Why Buddha taught these teachings? You know, why come this? All of them, these languages, the sources, as very similar or sharing with the first Dharma wells basis. So their base is very similar. The second Dharma well and the first Dharma well's base is similar. And then the third Dharma well's basis or sources are very similar of the Tantrayana. For this reason, also the third Dharma well must be definitive, more definitive, because you are sharing higher and higher level of teachings. And compare that, then second Dharma well is sharing lower teachings. So he's saying, if is the third Dharma well is a provisional teaching, how come that more profound? How can the definitive is less profound? That's not possible. So Tanton yinna zapar kalangir chaparan tama Tanton yinna songa Tanton yinna hachang tarangir. If we say that, that is impossible. So here is maybe a little bit mistake. Can say chapter varva Tanton yinna songa. So which means he said that, but I think is chapter tama Tanton yinna songa. In Tibetan, they have some red. The red one is correct. Tama, the red. And he said, if there is third training is provisional, how can be so profound in the particular when the final training is taught as provisional, since the absolute is provisional, that is logically adverse. Another reason, Nitun Tartuk Stanbi Jisayang, Patasha Changi Tonla Joanna, Jonathan of Tonbi, Changi Tonbi, Koram Hunda Chus. If you believe the second Dharma way is more definitive, and the third Dharma way is less definitive, then is wrong order. He's saying wrong order. Why is the wrong order? Because Buddha's teachings, all Buddha's teachings, is leading the who seeking the liberation, leading for them to liberate. So that's why when we say first Dharma, second Dharma, third Dharma means more high and high, meaning cannot be you first lower teaching, then is very high, and then go back to lower, impossible. So that's why it's the wrong order. So it's not logical and not acceptable. Ganzak chiglarton bir minna stak dak stokhoringer na mronwi na brakhshat pan tadan min baringer nyandi gzongwang kiju dolaso kanta an ganzak tui tsarto jersi. If Buddha's teachings orders is not an order of leading liberation higher and higher, if not that case, then if not that case, then yes, when you teach in the third Dharma well, then you have the dangerous to grasping a self, which means you cannot distinguish that supreme self of Buddha nature and the illusional self. You cannot distinguish. So therefore, impossible. But Buddha's teachings are higher and higher, and then the third Dharma, where it doesn't matter, you say, all phenomena is not interdependence, or there is supreme self. This is a permanent, definitive, whatever you say is no problem, because you already know how to amplify our the concept of self, all person and self or phenomenon already training under the second Dharma well. So you have no problem at all. But if not that case, is really is a wrong teaching. So how can give a Buddha give that kind of wrong teaching? Not only that, but also we can see that Buddha's teachings, these two sutras teachings, he said, on this always said, Buddha himself said, all his teachings is for training, continue higher and higher level of the liberation. So, that's two sutras. Can you say it?
These are, I believe, the Mahaparinirvana and is it the questions of King Dharaneshvara?
No. Nyandi. So liberation.
Nyandi Chempur is one. It's the Mahaparinirvana.
Okay. Oh, Nyandi. Okay.
Yeah. It's one. It's one.
Okay. And then say Omi Mangi Huetan Norwi Hui Chignid Semki Tama Jonserlo Nyandi Chembor Shenchi Lok Jetson. So Omi Huetan, all the Buddha's teachings he taught with knowledges. So the knowledge of the milk and medicine, the jewel, which means how you, the jewel, basically how you make very precious jewel, beautiful jewel from the rock, because jewels is not polished as in the jewelry shop. They always in the rock and under the ground and very difficult situation. But you need many process to become a jewelry. So that's ancient time. You how to say process in many different first different water wash, and then slowly in the milk, and then in many types of medicine you using them to polish, and then finally becomes a precious jewel. So he's saying same as Buddha's all teachings, polishing and unveiling this dirtiness, the precious jewel of the Buddha nature. So that's why it doesn't matter you say is the accumulation merits or you emptify self, doesn't matter whatever you say, accumulation merit from the first teachings, first Dharma well teaching, second training teachings, emptification, all of them, even you said there's no self at all, still is for the process to realize the supreme self of the Buddha nature. Nyadi chembur shinche log jetson, so chapari gerwish kan khsan watan sanji janso Zhentong tondamaya taktan semnit tabi tagin bi khatak lutan dungar den batan kachik chapchi ranjin me tostogna lokhtab shinche log jetson. So also Buddha stated inside the what we call Mahaparinirvana. Yes.
Mahaparinirvana, yeah.
Mahaparinirvana teaching sutra, he said there is 8 different, many 4 ways you can understand perfectly Buddha nature, or the 4 aspects you can understand wrong. So if you understand perfectly, and then the Buddha nature, the Buddha, the Akaya, Buddha Dharma Kaya, is supreme, clean, pure. And then Sanghi Jansox, or not only just Buddha, but it's Buddha filled. And then Udetans is blissful, and the definitive vast. Rayang means expanse, the definitive expanse. And then is permanent. And then semnyat means still is mind, which means still is perceivable, not just perceivable. And supreme self. But if you can think the opposite, then is khatak ludans, is the flesh, blood, body, and then is suffering nature, and the truth of self nature, and kachik is instant and particle, not partless, and essenceless, not truth. That kind of, if the perception is, he's saying wrong view and wrong path, wrong understanding.
Staking those two.
Korlo tang won jiktin ba tang tan warwa kan zo rangjin me ba tang gerwa tipchi yondan rawa so mo nyan tu lugli chilaga mot parchir tagamnam do tang tan hiches. The second Dharma will is quite agreeing with ordinary people mind. Warwa Kunzub Ramjin me patans. The first Dharma will, sorry. First Dharma will is based on ordinary people's perception. Second Dharma will only say the relative existence not exist, not truly exist, not naturally exist. That kind of. And the Gerva Tipji on the drawing Buddha have a innumerable quality. That's a second Dharma of ourselves. Said Gerva Tipji on the drawing that is that kind of many teachings is more superior than the teachings of Charvaka and Padiyaka, which means the first way of Dharma. But most of teachings are sharing with the Hinayana teaching. Tama Ramjin Metzer Wartam songs. Zhentong Ngawang Yopar Mach Songwi, Chachu, Mau Dana Yoparftan. So the second Dharma, third Dharma well is also say there is no essence or the samsara, samsaric phenomenon. That is same as sharing with the second Dharma well. In that range, even third Dharma well never said exist. Even third Dharma well never said all samsaric existence truly exists. Never said. But, and then you talking about the Buddha nature, and then you talk about much more quality, something the second Dharma will never taught. So therefore, also the third Dharma will must be a more definitive. Churna Ramjin of some Nam he get Takshin Tanomim be Churkadnam, Horlotamim, Dordre Hendrigi, Waram Master Lalar Dutiasons. Not only that, but also there is many terms of the high teachings is only elaborated inside of third Dharma well. And second Dharma well, those kind of teachings, that kind of terms, very, very few times talk. That is Churna. Churna means 5 dharmas, 3 natures, and 8 consciousness. All of them is third Dharma well, elaborate very well. But the second Dharma well is only sometimes talk about very briefly. So this also proved that the third Dharma well is much more definitive. So, Taur Chanton Tama on Chanton Chen, Yena Terim Tehi Chimona, Tao Tamas Ton Ser Chimandas. So, if the first Dharma well is the provisional teaching, and then third Dharma will also provisional, and then if that case, and they have to be, they must be similar, but they are very different, very, very far from each other. Jipa Danan Korlo Ramsam Gitang Ili Samte, Shimam Shokta Debaos, all of the above we talk about is about 3 training Dharma wells, and which one is more definitive is agreed upon. So that is finish. So now the subject is the Madhyamaka school and mind only school. Their divisions, their details of teachings, how can we prove that the Zhentong Madhyamaka is more superior? Korlo namsum gombi gnaschikjang nyantu namdang ranston mawatang semtsam badang Zhentong mawanam dotsir tatar kepr khindashis. So the 3 training Dharma wells, all of them, means though the 3 training have the single part of intention, okay? They all the same intention, same reason to teach the essence. However, the Hinayana teachings and the Zhentong teachings are similarities and sharing many things. The mind-only school's teachings and the Zhentong teachings have similarities and sharings. But if you analyze it very carefully in more subtle details, then it's very different, all of them. So why he said this? Because mind-only school is already Mahayana. So that's why Zhentong, so that means mind-only school, the Chittamata, is much more higher than the Sharvakas and Bhattiyakas teachings, you know. So therefore, Zhentongpa is have shared with them, but Zhentongpa shared with the Hinayana teachings. Gyatso de Jimjang Tam Chili, Jambi Ranston Manam Kanzobne, Nyantur Derni Potam Tenbermas. Inside the Ranston Pass, Gyatso means the Shantarakshita. Torde is Mpakwa Torde. Shantarakshita and Vimu Katisem, or how to say? Shantarakshita and Vimoktisena.
Vimuktisena. Yeah.
Vimuktisena.
Yeah.
Okay, these 2 is exception in the Ranston. And their followers are exception. Other than those Ranston Pass, when they're talking about more details of samsara, or you can say more details of the relative truth, they are very, very similar of the 2 schools of the Hinayana. Okay? Which means the, what do you call it? I forgot that. Vibhashika and Sutrantika. Okay, that's he saying. And then when we're talking about only relative truth, then the Zhentong Madhyamaka and the mind-only school similar. Okay, even that case, even that shows Zhentong is much higher because Chitta Mata is much higher than Vibhashika and Sautrantika. Ranston Mawa Nyan Tu Tantan La, Zhentong Mawa Simtsam Tantan Man, Yet Nyan Tu Badan Simtsam Mun. Because many people mistake that Zhentong is Chitta Mata. But he's saying here, if that, why they mistake that? Because there is some similarities, teachings, such as the 8 consciousness and 5 dharmas, 3 natures, those terms sharing with Chitta Mata, Zhentong. Zhentong and Chitta Mata, they share in those. So that's why people mistake. But he's saying, if that case, then Rantongpa must be Vibhashika and Svatrantika, because they share in all the many, many teachings of the relative truth, sharing with them. So what he's saying, in reality, they sharing with some teachings doesn't mean they are that school. Okay? So as same as Rantong Madhyamikas are not Vibhashika and Svatrantika. Similarly, Zhentongpa sharing with Chitta Mata doesn't mean Zhentongpa is Chitta Mata, not a Mandoni school. Rantong, okay. Lankar Shandur Simtsam Lindi Song, Simtsam Nastawa Nam He Dentruin, Chuyang Nam He. For example, in the Langa Sutra, Zhentong Madhyamaka is go beyond Chitta Mata. Buddha himself stated. That's why also not possible. And symptoms Tavarnam Shiv Dentruins. So Chitta Mata's view is the ultimate truth is the mind. The mind is, truly exist. But Zhentong Madhyamaka's the ultimate truth is the suchness. This suchness, the suchness, Buddha nature is not the mind, is go beyond the mind. That's why go beyond this 5 consciousness, 8 consciousness. Okay, so that's why all 8 consciousness is not a Buddha nature. So that's why it cannot be same. Tartuk texsam gyantamashid mod. Texchik texsam rikchet yun metan. Sanyilsam tang dengin don mandod. Detak simsam rimi kaparmans. Because so many people mistake that Zhentong is Chitta Mata. Why they mistake? Because sometimes they say, oh, because Chitta Mata, not saying all beings, finally one part. They're not saying that text. That means even final have different three yanas. 3 yanas, not 1 yana. And also, there is many teachings, there's 3 yanas, 1 yana, or some sentient beings never enlightened, that kind of many status. Then there's 3 natures and 2 truths. Those all talk, sometimes people mistake, but these talks cannot distinguish Jitamata and cannot distinguish Jitamata and Madhyamaka. Because these all teachings and the different schools have different understanding Buddha's teachings, because they are different, higher and higher mindset, which means their wisdom is not one level. So that's why those you cannot distinguish between the Jitamata and Madhyamaka. Because Drumtabjiki Dermi Nam Jakshi, Sanil Sambo Hershin Li Jangstan, Parpi Janchip Semder Danson, which means all the four classes of the four schools, which means Vibhashika, Sautrantika, Jitamata, Madhyamaka, all of them talk about true truth, but their true truth is not same. They all talk about three natures. And not only that, because even the Aryabin, which means the Nagarjuna, even Nagarjuna's commentary also, he talking about those. Because usually you should not talk about this, because some other people's point of view that Nagarjuna is a high Madhyamika. So how come he talk about the Jitamata's teachings? How come he talk about the other teachings? But he said, even this, he talk about those doesn't mean that's his ultimate belief. So you cannot distinguish what those talk or not talk. You cannot distinguish these sutras high and level because of those talk difference. All the Dharma teachings saying these things, somewhere is very briefly, somewhere more details. But all the schools have a different interpretation. Nirka vrikchen kyan doter shet droken dekshig nyon chanson shir tartuk rikchen dor dirgan na kwaksi. For example, he said, even these high teachings, still they say there is three annas. Finally, final again is not same. Saying these things. Richard means even these higher teachings, not say all enlightened, all sentient beings enlightened. Sometimes say some sentient beings cannot be enlightened. That kind of talk. But the most high teachings saying that all sentient beings have the Buddha nature. So therefore, so finally, there is nobody cannot enlighten. That is Dordigan teaching in that. Taught in the, can you spell that?
Mahayana Sutra Lamkara.
Okay. Ultimate truth cut of family is those refused.
Thus refuted.
Okay. Tartuk shirna takchin nyechikson nirkab teksum ranston ma an yut shamju legar yana temtanson kanzub semtsam ranston ma anga He's saying that all the high teachings, finally all vehicles become only one vehicle. It means all different nirvanas, finally one nirvana. Because this is why this and this things, they mistake, because Semzaba, this Jita Mata's teachings say, oh, not all sentient beings enlightened, these things. So that's why they think Zhentong is lower, because they said these things in Zhentong teaching. But here's saying, in that case, even the Rangtongba said that. That's only temporarily a teaching or the ultimate level teaching. So, or temporarily, even the Rangtongs, the high sutras also said they are not same quality, and possible 3 yanas, not 1 yana. Not only that, but Buddha Maitreya's request sutras to the Buddha also saying that. No, not only that, but also in the relative truth, as agree like Chitamata, also some of the Rangtongas. So we said that Shantarak Chita and this few Rangtongas also, they are agreeing when we're talking about relative truth as like Chitamata. So that's why your distinguishing Madhyamaka and Jitamata, and your distinguishing Rangtong, Zhentong is lower because of similar of Jitamata is foolish distinguishing or contradicting yourself. Gervi symptom lindi mandi ta Jawang Jirson Jafra Jarlontan, Devjin Pakpal Hatan Zetari, Sharir Zigim Zapi Ginjirta, Sonanam Navjachik Babs. Not only that, but also all the commentaries, if you look at, and Buddha's teachings. The Buddha himself said the Zhentong Madhyamaka is to go beyond Ajitamata. And Manjushri also said that, and then Manju Gosha also said that. Yevjinta Pakpaha, Aryan Dewa, and Zetar also said that. Not only that, but also Pantarika, his teachings said that. So if you know what your position is, contradicting all of these bodhisattvas, teachings and commentaries. Zonzan na changir nam khite ngo zonzan litur den chuptan tontam tan tevjin nyendo chang zontan zambi nabab den chupte telar nawi zonzan den midlos zonzan na changir nam khite ngo zonzan litur den chuptan. What same Tsamba, the Jitamata's position is those words explanation of regional doctrines of mind only consciousness with how do you say? Can you read that?
With the appearance of grasper and grasped.
Yes, this kind of mind, this kind of mind, grasping and grasper, this this is the mind, consciousness. And that itself is, you are free from those. Yeah, you read?
When its essence is free from grasper and grasped, it's maintained to be truly existing absolute truth. And
yes,
such
that one is truly exist. So they say that. So that is, in Madhyamaka point of view, is only still is mind, not free from the air consciousness. So that itself, Jittamata believe, is the definitive and the suchness. That kind of mind itself is truly exist. Then whatever appears for that mind is Zhentong demilo, yet appears of grasper and grasped is claimed to lack truth of existence. So he disagreeing. If that kind of, you cannot be free from those. So that is obviously, he said, obviously, Jittamata's teachings like that kind of. So that is very low if you compare the Zhentong Madhyamaka's understand the Buddha nature. This, the symptom by Jamphel ton la symptom that ngupornam dodna symptom by Zhentong ngurnam lognang sems en denmit pi symptom lina chi firmadis. If is really, if you Zhentong Madhyamaka is like Jittamata, then you have to agree with all of the above said. Because this is the Jittamata's doctrine. But the reality is go beyond that, as Zhentong Madhyamaka's teachings. If you go beyond the Jittamata's teachings, how can be you still Jittamata? So, can you read those commentaries, translations?
real things in reality are established as only mind. Anyone who says that is a Chittamatrin. How could it be otherwise? Yet wrong appearances of real things have no true existence as anything, even mind. Why do they not transcend mind only? Yeah.
Okay. Nam hi par nam din mit stogna nam hi par nam din mit stogpana kunzubernawa meshir wamar sons. Tontamernawa yoshir temenas. So nam shi par nam din mit stogpana kunzubernawa meshir wamar sons. You are Madhyamaka schools. Why you claim you are Madhyamaka, you are higher? Because you say in Namshi, you understand that the Namshi consciousness is not truly exist, and then you don't have appearance of the relative. So therefore, you are not far for extremes. You are the middle path. In that case, then you say, oh, but you are Zhentong is not Madhyamaka because you have appearance of the ultimate truth. In that case, he said, so in that case, all the Aryan beings occupy occupied. So when they observed on an ultimate truth, that kind of all of them cannot be Madhyamaka. This cannot be the wisdom of to understand Madhyamaka. So Jipana, this is distinguishing what is Chittamata really is and what is Zhentong Madhyamaka and how they're different. And the Zhentong Madhyamaka is much more supreme. Ranston Ranama Pakpa Ladibgi Lonesome Killing Ban Tunmotjan, Kachik Sheton Dolla, Kachingo, Kachigran Dolla, Kachingo, Gaji Nafhi Gandola Lagos. He's saying, what is wrong in the Ranston school? The problem is everybody have a different opinions, and they not agree on each other. Why they not agree on each other? Because they don't have strong basis. Everybody agreeing, or Ranston was kind of agreeing of Nangajuna's quotations. But some of them not believe in the external things, and some they believe. So which means, like the Yogacarya, Madhyamaka, like Shantarakshita and those, they can have similar of the Chittamata. So that's why. But the others, like Chantakirti and so forth, they don't believe anything existence outside. Oh, they believe outside exist. And then Kachik Rarik, the self observation. This one, some agree, some disagree. Same as the eight consciousness, some agree, like Shantarakshita, and then the others disagree, Chantakirti and so forth. They only believe that six consciousness. So they are fighting each other all the time. And also, Tagman Pijan Terminal Toktan Martokla, so Savitum Taken, around Zuang, the Tatanam Jaganchuk, Chukan Din Mitzam Tumton Motjan, Shansti, Torinjin, Jim Downji, Lochten Maper, around Lu Lamtanis. Why Ranton has so much mistake? Because so some of Madhyamaka say, oh, Hinayanas, they never understood the self-empty. And some say, no, they understand equal as self-empty, understand equal as Mahayana. For instance, Gelugpa's, Dzongkhapa's point of view, Hinayanas, they understand emptiness as equal as Mahayana. The only difference is they don't have bodhicitta. So he said all of them have so many arguments among the Rinpoche Madhyamaka because they don't have solid doctrine to follow. Their Buddha's teachings, they interpreted too much, and then interpreted also not everybody same. And that's why there are so much disagreement among each other. And they never get the truth exactly because of that they don't have solid doctrine to follow. They bring pieces of from the Hinayana and pieces of Chittamata, pieces of Madhyamaka, and to try to put together. That's he said. So which means they only agree in, oh yes, all things not really true. That kind of they agree, but the details of how and why and everything, they're very, very confused because they don't have real pioneerist this one follow. Why they don't have that kind of pioneers? Because they don't have doctrine. Rangton mala rangkan tsukwai takshin ngomba tan ndarwa tan dordi gondir gipa me pifshir tawa kona loxs khshashini rden nxsem gi Jean-Luc Chapitse lala firma kachik ndordeva kachik namjur shopi Jean-Luc le. So Rangton mama or the Rangton bas, they don't have one solid doctrine to follow because they don't have that Mahayanas, Abhidharma, and Vinaya and Sutra, all of them, they don't have real commentary, detailed commentary. Therefore, they bring just their own view, and you analyze that view from that point of view. Then when you try to explain the three baskets, then some rely on the Charvakas, the Vibhashikas and Svatantrikas. Some rely on the Yogacharas, which means Chittamata, and some maybe a little bit Yogacara, Madhyamaka, all of them. That's why they become desolated, not united. They cannot unite because they don't have solid doctrine to follow. Because they interpreted too much Buddha's teachings. And they don't have, like the Rangton was the teachers, the pioneers, we can say pioneers, these Pantritas or the teachings of the India and Tibet, all of them, they don't have full, complete doctrine, commentary. They're just pieces. Basically, they're pieces to try to put together. So they have so many mistakes. And then what Zhentong do is the opposite. What they do is Zhentong marnam shambi churnga tang takchin tomen sheki Jean-Luc Gyatso they have shared Stavitam mountain met takshin dordi dernot umderwi jonkan la namjur jong Zhentong majopis. So Zhentong Bas, they have solid doctrine written by solid, the pioneers and their followers, their disciples. So that is, what is that? That is Bodhisattva materials, 5 texts. So in that case, some people could think this, oh, that's also Zhentong Bas also follow. Why is Zhentong Bas better? But there is many reasons Zhentong Bas better. Because Zhentong Bas understand that there is nobody better than Maitreya. After the Buddha, nobody, impossible. So they follow 100% Maitreya. But not only that, but also they follow Asangha's commentaries. Because Zhentong Bas understand that Asangha is nobody compare to explain Maitreya's text. Why? Okay, firstly, Maitreya is, you cannot compare any other bodhisattvas or teachers, anybody, to explain the Maitreya's, Buddha's teachings. Why? Because firstly, he is incredible high bodhisattva level. Secondly, is Buddha's region, Buddha himself's region. And then his commentaries, you cannot find better than Asangha, because Asangha is, he has a direct teaching from Maitreya. Nobody have direct teaching from Maitreya. So that's why they make this the best priority. Any other teachings not match those, they refuse. But Zhentong was not like that. They praise, yes, with the Maitreya, they praise Asangha, but they more rely on Nagarjuna, but that's not too bad, but they more rely less Pantidas, less the Indian masters. They rely on these less ones more, too much. So that's why they mistake. Because they don't have anybody have the teachings more explained very clearly and complete like Asangha. They don't have that. Zhentong Bas, they don't even believe that Asangha is pioneers for Madhyamaka. They only understand, he's pioneers of Chittamata. Some Zhentong Bas little bit understand he's pioneers of equal as good as Nagarjuna. But most of them, they think less than Nagarjuna. But actually is Asangha's even better than Nagarjuna. Because Asangha is a third level of bodhisattva. And Nagarjuna is known as the first level of bodhisattva. Zhentong manam shabi churnga tang thomen cheki rjon gyam surju defshis tawi tumta mumtan men takshin dor dernam derwi rjon kan la namjur shojon Zhentong majukpi ro marur gyam chaqtami kyan korlu gelgel zirgi manunjan Zhentong rjon kan da taqzar manons Zhentong banam very easily and comfortably and firmly to follow Buddha materials teachings with commentary of the Asangas, oceans of teachings, oceans of commentaries of Buddha materials. Okay, please, can you understand? Or Rantombas, or follow those things. Or Rantombas follow Buddha Bodhisattva materials teachings, 5 texts, but the commentary is not enough. Some of them maybe follow a little bit Asanga, but not enough. Even they follow Asanga, maybe they don't put the first priority, but Zhentong does. So that's why is no mistake. Therefore, Zhentong have no disagree inside each other. When we say Zhentong is not only Jonang-Ba, Zhentong is much bigger than Jonang-Ba, okay? The only difference is Jonang-Ba is 100% Zhentong, no Rantombas at all. But Zhentong is, all Zhentong is not Jonang-Ba. But all Zhentong, there is no huge disagreements at all. Therefore, say roar gamchak tamikyang korlu girgizar gimanun jin menza. Therefore, as even many hundreds of the lower mountains cannot overbow their universal monarch. So lower mountains. It's not lower mountains. I think this is it's difficult to translation. Meaning is robbers, basically. Robbers who lived on the mountains. Many of them cannot compare a universal monarch. You cannot defeat universal monarch. Many of the robbers. So similarly, the Rantombas doctrines cannot defeat Zhentong's doctrine. Zhentong's doctrine is a universal monarch, and these ones are like robbers. Okay, that's Taranata Sin. Time. Oh, time finishing. 10. Okay. So you have normal? Okay.
10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, I can leave there. If you have anybody have questions written.
Yes, Rinpoche, there's quite a lot of questions, so we'll just make it through what we can today. Let's start with one of the questions that related actually to something you just touched on. Is there any substantial difference, I know you just mentioned it, but could you elaborate more, between the Zhentong and the Zhentong upheld by the Nyingmapas or the Kagyu? And can you explain a little bit of the difference?
Kagyu?
Yes, is there a difference, the way the Kagyu, the Nyingma, and the Jonang see the Zhentong view? And what is the difference?
It's very difficult to say that because Nyingma all not agree each other, and Kagyubas all did not agree each other. And so we cannot say, oh, Nyingma's Zhentong is this, Kagyu's Zhentong is this, okay? But some of them is like 99% Zhentong, some is 95% of Zhentong, some maybe 99.99. So that kind of differences, yes.
Okay.
So Kagyu,
Oh no, go.
so Kagyu is inside among the Kagyupa, maybe Jamgon Contra and Siddhapanchin, and another one I can't remember. There are more 99 Zhentong, and some Karma Bas 95, and among the Nyingma, Lonchin Ramjam, like more 99. Jamphel, you don't know what is his position.
So are when they're pointing to Zhentong, even the ones that are kind of like it, or is it the same thing they're pointing at?
Yeah, when we say 99 is quite good, huh?
Yes, quite. quite
1%. Sometimes we have flavor of, when you're talking about a flavor of Kagyu or you flavor of Nyingma, that kind of, sometimes, that's why I'm saying 99. Okay. But if you say, do you agree this, I think they say, yes, I agree.
Okay, another question. How do I, as an ordinary person who is a Buddhist beginner, can I ever have any real hope to understand this extremely difficult Zhentong subject?
Of course, everybody have hope because everybody have Buddha nature equally. The only is a matter of time and differences, but the time it doesn't matter. As long as you have a bodhichitta, then your path is always progress. And when even you are sleeping and you do nothing, still your merit is increasing. Doesn't matter. The Zhentong Madhyamaka, what we're talking about is we're talking about the reason behind why people have disagreement. We're not talking about we're not emphasizing when we're talking about the Zhentong practicing. We're talking about the philosophy behind. So sometimes it's not so familiar. That's why it sounds difficult, but when you become familiar, then you feel, oh my God, that's so easy. Why we argue so long? That kind of.
Okay. We've been talking a lot about Buddha nature. Can we understand Buddha nature somehow, the qualities in Buddha nature, or is this beyond our actual capacities? So which qualities are part of Buddha nature?
So Buddha nature is is an innumerable quality. We just have to believe that. We cannot show this impossible, We cannot show everybody that. We just have to believe. So why is believe? Because we have many good reasons, okay? So, because when we say truth or false, we never believe the false. We always want to believe the truth. So if it's the truth, then is no problem. If it's a false, then all the problems arises from false and untruth. So that's why we have a very good reason. We can say many other reasons, but shortly. So we want to believe the truth. But when we say truth, we only understand the relative truth. So ultimate truth means equally perfect. Relative truth is not necessarily perfect, but ultimate truth means equally perfect and blissful and permanent. If not those qualities, then is not the ultimate truth, only relative truth. So we have to understand that way right now. But then if we based on that belief, then we have like train our mind to altruistic way, and then one day you realize, and one day you experience. So then one day you experience solitude, your experience, and then one day it become you experience the permanently. So like that.
Okay, another question continuing in the same direction. Is Rangtong view an unveiling or peeling back of the layers, and Zhentong view a development of qualities?
Basically, Rangtong view is included in the Zhentong. You cannot say separate, but Rangtong view is not enough complete, but still is a good process. Never be bad process. So that means when we unveil something, you don't know what is in it. That is Rangtong view, but you still unveiling. But you know what is how valuable inside, incredible. You know that already, and then you unveiling. That is Zhentong.
Okay, so Rinpoche, is it possible that Ringtongpa's Ringtong is not, they're not able to see the Tathagata Garbha? That is why Ringtongpas stagnate, get stuck at just Ringtong. They can't see the Tathagata Garbha. Is that the reason?
Rangtongpa's view to who not understand Tathagata Garbha means they are beginners. They are beginners. But if you continue go that same path, still you understand one day you understand Tathagata Garbha. Even you go Rangtong path, still you understand one day. The only difference is maybe more slower because you don't understand the destination, but you still walking. But to understand the Zhentong means you have incredible inspiration and an attraction, your destination. So that's why you are going the same direction, but one, you understand what destination and why important. The other one, maybe half understanding. But still the same direction, still same direction.
Okay, the next question is related to the 4 reliances from last time's teaching. So this person's wondering if the 4 reliances goes beyond any system or religion. What would Taranatha view on Hinduism? So they're wondering, when you're saying rely on the teaching and not the teacher, does this really end at the border of your own belief system?
Taranatha, he is not a simple, ordinary religious person. And that's why he understands all religions' limitations, but also he can interpret it much better all the religion doctrines. Does that make sense? Is that answered?
A little bit. I think then the person's wondering if they themselves should rely on the teachings, not the teachers. If they were studying other traditions, would the 4 reliances still be something to follow?
Oh, you rely on the teachings, not teacher means usually people are relying on the teacher. How is it famous? How is the high title? And how many followers? And how popular is? People follow this. He saying that's not important. You focus on the teachings, a famous teacher and not famous teacher, or some people have high title and someone have no title. You not focus that, and you focus on this ordinary person and high title, let's say like a Pope's teaching, or your neighbor, gardener's teaching. You follow only what they say, not who they are in the society. Means that it's not saying you always reject your teacher, you not disrespect your teacher, you not value your teacher. Not means not that.
Okay, Rinpoche, the Zhentong view seems to be identical with Advaita Vedanta teachings from India. Is there any historical relation between them?
What Indians, what do you say?
This person thinks that the Zhentong view seems identical to Advaita Vedanta, which is the Vedic.
Vedanta.
Yeah, in India. So they're wondering if there's a historical relationship.
All teachings have a historical relationship. All teachings based on each other, and then they explain more. So Buddhism is based on Hindu, but go beyond Hindu, you know. So all of them like this, all over the world, teachings have either you have historical relation, or either your relationship with truth. Even not 100% truth, there's some truth you have sharing.
I want to take a moment to see Lei. Are there any questions on your side?
No, we don't have a question.
No question? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next question is, why was Tsongkhapa so against Dolpopa Zhentong, even though Tsongkhapa did a 3-year Kalachakra route to Jonang?
I think Tsongkhapa, he found his medicine, right? He found his medicine. And let's say even he studied medicine from others, Jonang-Shambhala and the others, but maybe he didn't study very long time from them, but even his best on from there. But he's found his own way. He found his own way, and he think this is the best. Same as we have, many different doctors have teach different ways, patients. And their patients have karmic link, there's benefit of cure the ill. But there's go other doctor, they don't cure. So similarly, Tsongkhapa, he's found his way, and his followers have a benefit. So that is the truth. But if we analyzed between them, then which one is suitable for you, which one more makes sense to you, that is your medicine.
Okay, although we have a lot of questions, we're only going to do a few more questions today, but I will save the questions and you can continue to send them in. So the next question is there a difference between innate Kalachakra Dharmakaya and completely developed Zhentong view?
The only expressions different. You cannot have any different Dharmakayas for any school and any Buddha's doctrine. Only different expressions. So from the different expressions, people have different experience or different benefits.
It seems quite impossible to not experience fear of this view at some point on the path. So is the first verse, Vajra pristine wisdom is fearless of the view of the self. Is that the best antidote to the fear that develops?
I didn't understand what I mean.
This person's saying that basically they think it seems quite impossible to not experience fear the fear of this view at some point on the path. They're saying that this view is scary, and they think it seems impossible that they wouldn't have fear while trying to understand it. So they're wondering if the best antidote to this fear, it has to do with the first verse that we studied, which was Vajra pristine wisdom is fearless of the view of the self.
Okay, so it appears no possible, no fear is one individual's karmic view. That is not the reality for everybody. And to acquire this karmic view, you have your own medicine. So this own medicine, of course, we have to understand the relative bodhicitta and the ultimate bodhicitta progressively, maybe not only once. Or if you want to go fast, then you have to practice the Parshana Paramita in Jut practice way.
That's wonderful. And for that individual, we are working to schedule a Chöd retreat later this year with Rinpoche that we will make available to everybody who registers for it online. So there's also information in the back of Unveiling Your Sacred Truth book 2, I believe, on that practice. We're going to do the last question before the prayers. So there's a solar eclipse tomorrow, and they're wondering how do you harness the energy of the solar eclipse to bring added benefit to your Dharma? And also, did Dolpopa and Taranatha advise anything in respect to solar eclipses?
Okay. So I need to go. You can dedicate together.
Okay, Rinpoche, so we'll say the final prayers then.
Did you question?
I did. I asked you the question. The last question was about the solar eclipse tomorrow, because some people are wondering if there's something they can do for their Dharma practice because of the solar eclipse. And the other question related to the solar eclipse is, does Dolpopa and Taranatha have any advice in respect to the solar eclipse?
Yes, of course. Solar eclipse means, our the Lalana Rasana inside have karmic wind and karmic propensities producing the samsara. So the external is the solar curve means this internally, this the channels, the karmic winds and everything dissolve into the Awaditi, the central channel. So that's why anything like that, meditation, understand meditation on emptiness, meditation on Buddha nature. If that can't too much, then meditation on Guru Yoga and distance number 1. So if you can't do that, then you can do anything is substitute. Any virtuous actions.
Thank you so
Okay.
very much, Rinpoche. Yes, thank you. So then we'll do the closing dedication. And if we didn't get to your question this time, I'm saving them and you can continue to send them in and we'll work through them.
If
So-
there's too many questions, you can send me before the teachings so I can answer them. Okay.
Okay. So page 272. And we'll in the profound path of Vajra Yoga for general dedications. By all these virtuous